Shalom, everybody. We're going to read Parashat Vayyishlach. I did get a question in the group chat to send out the reading on Friday, what we'll be going through on Sundays today. And I did want to remind everybody that the readings are actually predictable. There are 54 Torah portions that are divided according to Jewish tradition, taking the entire Torah and dividing it into 54 portions. So all I'm doing is reading the next one and the next one. And I put a link in the chat to a list of all the Torah portions so that you can easily find the next one after whatever we read here, the subsequent reading. If anyone would like to raise a hand or annotate on the screen, here's how you do it. And with no further ado, let's get started. Who would like to read the first verse of this Torah portion called Vayyishlach? Any hands? Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay. Vayyishlach Yaakov, malachim lifnei el Asav, Achiv, Arza, Sheir, Sede, Edom.
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 We know the word Sadeh, but what's the word Sdeh?
It's obviously a place, an area.
Sadeh is a field. So what's the difference between Sadeh and Sdeh? Why did this long kamatz vowel drop down to a shva? What happened?
With the construct. It's in the construct.
Very good. It's in the construct. So that means we're looking at field of. The next word tells us what it's of. It's the modifier. The field of, or the country open area of Edom. Let me read through one time, and then we'll go through some more details here. Vayyishlach. Tell you what, let me include syllable markers. Vayyishlach Yaakov malachim לפניו אל עשיו אחיו ארצה שעיר שדה Edom. And you can see that I've made these last two words one syllable long because I consider those shvas as a consonant cluster with the next consonant. Sde Edom, rather than Sde Edom, much like blue. And where did I want to go with this? Oh, the context of this story. Why is Yaakov sending messengers? What did we read last week? What's the story last week? Why does he have to send messengers to Esau? He's on his way back from Padan Aram, right? He just made a covenant with Laban at the heap of stones. And they said, I will not go beyond this heap of stones to do you harm, and you will not do the same, or you will do the same. And now he's headed back home. He sends messengers to his brother, the one that he wronged. And so here we have Vayyishlach Yaakov. Jacob is the subject. What did he do? Shalach.
Sent.
Vayiktol. Yod says, what's the Yod say? What does the Yod tell us about the verb?
It's a third masculine singular.
Right. So it means he is the subject, referring back to Yaakov. And then he sent. Malachim is what he sent. Malachim, messengers or angels?
Messengers.
Why not angels?
He counts angels. He's not God.
What's the word angelos in Greek?
Well, I suppose it's the same word, isn't it?
Well, what I mean to say is that angelos in Greek means messengers.
Yeah.
So the word from which we get divine heavenly angels actually just meant messengers. So if the messenger happens to be sent by God, then we call them angels. But if it's not sent by God, then, well, in that sense, a lot of, never mind. If they're divine, if they're celestial, then we call them angels. And if they're not celestial, we call them messengers. But it's the same word. Lefanav. What's the root of lefanav?
Panim.
In the face. In the face of.
Panim, face. To the face of him. El Esav, unto Esau. Achiv. What is an ach?
Brother.
Bro.
What's the vav?
His.
What's the yod?
For mistake. So it's no longer needed.
Agreed, but what is it? Why is it there?
Part of the root? Construct.
Okay, construct is actually part of the answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Somebody already said it. Somebody already said it. It was a third letter. There's a third letter.
With the vav, sorry.
So the word ach has a third missing root letter. We don't usually get to see the yod, but in construct, it comes back. It's fascinating how the construct form usually preserves things about certain words that you don't get to see in the lexical or absolute form. And then outza, what's the hey?
Towards.
Directional.
Towards the outs, the eretz. Seir. What is seir? Hair. What is a what is it? A sa'ir?
Is that a lord?
No, that's Sar, I think.
Oh, that's sar. Very good. What is a sa'ir? It's a goat.
That's what I thought, but Seorim.
Oh, you didn't say. Now seorim has the same root. What are seorim?
Seorim, barley.
Barley.
Yeah, because that in homework I called it goats instead
of
exactly.
Okay, so we've got hair, we've got goat, we've got barley. What do those all have in common?
Oh, they all have hair. Even barley has hair.
Right. So the barley has hair on it. Maybe the goats are a special breed of hairy goats. I don't know, but that's an easy way to remember it. Sde Edom. Remember, after Jacob left, Esau moved to. No, excuse me. When did he move? Anyway, eventually he moved to Edom, which is in Seir, which is what is that? Southern Jordan, I guess. To modern day southern Jordan. Any questions on this before we go to the next verse?
Yeah, I was wondering, how do you know the difference between the comments say ending meaning to or towards and the possessive?
All right, so if it is a directional hey,
or the other question is or construct. No, construct would be ending in ot. Never mind.
Absolute. Maybe you mean absolute, because that would be another one, right? That would be another kamatse. All right, so let's differentiate here. There's an absolute form of a feminine noun that ends in hey, like malka, chochma, take your pick. Then there's directional hey, like the one we saw here. Then there's a possessive, meaning it belongs to her. So maybe I'll just put her right here. Something belongs to her, like beita, right? How do you differentiate them? Well, the directional hey will never be stressed. The stress will be somewhere other than the kamatz of the kamatz hey. Like here, it's alza. The possessive hey is either going to, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. The possessive hey should have a mapik in it. which
Oh.
means it is a consonantal hey and originally had a sound to it. So we don't say beta, we say beta. Well, I say we. What do I have? A mouse in my pocket? In modern Israel, nobody would say beta, even though that's how it was originally pronounced. They'll say beta, her house. Nevertheless, it should have a guttural hey sound at the end of it, as the mapik indicates. What about the absolute form of a feminine noun? That should be a stressed kamate. That's how you can differentiate the three.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure, absolutely. All right, any other questions?
Constantine has a question. Constantine asks why there is a vav at the end of achav.
Achiv?
Achiv, yeah.
Okay, so the three root letters of ach were originally aleph, chet, yod. And even though in the lexical form we lose the yod, nevertheless in the construct it comes back. And then we have the possessive vav, which means his. So ach, his brother, is his. Achiv, his brother. Does that answer your question? Okay. All right. Who's my next reader? Who would like to read this this one right here? Go ahead, Cheryl.
Okay. ויצב אותם לאמור, כה תאמרון לאדוני לעשו, כה אמר עבדך יעקב עם לבן, גרתי ואיכר עד עתה.
Fast reader, trying to catch up to you. Okay. By the way, excellent reading. Vaitzav otam lemor ko tomrun ladoni le'esav. Ko amar avdcha Yaakov im lavan garti va'echar ad ata. Okay, this is pausal form at the end, so it's not ata, it's ata. And what should we do with this? Vaitzav. That's a little complicated. Let's go back to that one. Okay, avdecha. Why is there a cha at the end?
Your
It's masculine. It's masculine.
preposition.
Exactly. It's referring to you, a man, your servant. So it gets a little dicey here trying to figure out who says what to whom. So you really have to follow along very carefully. Vaitzav and he, referring to Jacob since we just talked about him. Jacob commanded otam. Whom?
His servants, his messengers.
Messengers, exactly. In the previous verse, we saw messengers. So here are here's the entourage, the messengers, the angels, saying. So this is still. Wait, this is Jacob telling the messengers to say.
Saying.
Is this Jacob telling? Is this Jacob saying, or is this Jacob commanding the messengers to say?
No, that's Jacob saying, and then he's gonna say what he wants them to say.
I would agree.
Okay.
So Jacob is commanding them to say. The way the translation here has the word saying, I don't like it. Because saying is an adjective that has to describe someone doing the action. So it sounds like Jacob is the one saying. No, he's commanding them to say.
I don't think I agree with you. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I think it's like Lemor is getting ready to like a quote, thus you shall speak. It's like to say thus you shall speak, because that would be like saying to say, thus you shall speak. It would be like saying the same thing twice.
Very good.
Well, I think it's
So that's an excellent point to make. I would say probably 8 out of 10 times. I like that
but
argument.
not today, right?
Well, the reason not today is because of this.
I don't know what that stuff is. The
Well, you know,
rune
Amar,
in
Wow.
Amar, yeah.
Tav at the front and U at the end.
Are they?
You
You plural. You plural.
Plural.
So
you
would
shall.
it make sense for the messengers to speak to Esau saying, you all say?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm confused now.
Yeah, I'm telling you that you got to really keep you mind your P's and Q's here. And so here it literally means you all will say. So who's speaking? The messengers or Jacob?
Jacob.
Jacob.
Jacob. So here Jacob is commanding them.
To
Ah,
Oh man, that means you're right, aren't you? Oh, let me get my foot and shove it in my mouth. Saying. So this must be Jacob who's saying based on the context here. You win.
ah.
You got the
Did I get a
jackpot.
prize?
Yeah, two gold stars or something like that.
Okay.
Ko tomrun. Thus you all shall say. Okay, so this is Jacob speaking, telling him what you all, the messengers, ought to say. La doni.
Okay, so what's with the noon in Tomerun?
Energic noon.
Well, it's technically paragogic noon.
Paragogic. Sorry.
Paragogic noon is what you call it when there's a noon hanging out at the end of a yiktol verb. And energic noon is what you call it when there's a noon stuck in between a yiktol verb and a suffix.
Okay. What's the name here?
This is paragogic,
Also,
which is kind of, it makes me shake my head. Paragogic simply means it's attached. It's an attached noon. Well, of course it's attached. My eyes can see it's attached, but we need a fancy Latin or Greek name for it. Paragogic noon. Or if you want to sound even smarter, you can use the Latin noon paragogicum. Yeah, we don't care about that. It's an attached noon. Great. So now back to the original question. What does it mean? I don't know. According to the grammars, it doesn't mean anything by the time we get to First Temple period. It's just there. Now we get to see this noon more often in First Temple period and almost none at all in Second Temple period. And I would dare say not at all, not even once, but I don't know that 100%. The point is it shows up early, but not late. So it must have originally meant something, right? Well, not necessarily. This noon is what shows up in Aramaic normally. So this noon could just be the original form of the yiktol suffix. We know it is tav at the front and u at the end. Maybe it was originally tav at the front, un at the end, and eventually people stopped pronouncing the
yes.
Can you see that through the scriptures where there's something like that or something other that you see gradually leave?
Oh, yeah.
Time?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Vocabulary changes, certain verbal forms change, shifting from one part of speech to another, interaction with other languages like Aramaic or Persian or Egyptian. Yes, absolutely. So it is fascinating to see those changes. The problem is you have to hunt for them.
Well, what about like Yehoshua turning down to Yeshua?
Excellent. There's another example of the feebleness or the soft sound of hey going down to completely missing. In fact, earlier we saw achiv, right? The word achiv was probably originally achihu, because who is your pronoun and who is your pronoun suffix, and it still shows up a lot in the Bible. But achihu has a feeble hey that goes missing, and so that should be achiu. like it often is in Aramaic, and then eventually somebody dropped the ball and called it achiv, even though it was never a V sound initially. Yeah, so we lose Hey and Yehoshua turning into, initially Yoshua turning down to Yeshua. You also get to see, like Yehoav turning into Yoav. Yeho refers to Yod He Vav He, and it turns into Yoav. The Hey of he feel goes missing. The definite article Hey goes missing when there's a preposition in front. Even the 3fs suffix. This is what I wanted to mention earlier, but it wasn't terribly relevant. But now I'm going to bring it up because it's more relevant. Earlier we saw means something belongs to her, right?
Yeah.
Kind of. It was originally aha. And this Hey, how do I want to put this? I want to combine two things together. I want to combine energic noon with the original aha third feminine singular possessive. If there's a noon at the end of a verb and it interacts with the original form aha, the noon will actually take the Hey and back assimilate it in, and all you're left with is na. It's like, it's maddening. Well, I say the consonantal Hey will, but you still have this left. So after we lose this Hey, there's still an ah sound at the end. So we put a vowel letter Hey at the end. It can get as maddening as you want, but let's get away from maddening things and get back to the topic. Does anyone have any follow-up questions on all that hocus pocus?
Right. No.
Ricky, you have your hand up. Do you have a question?
I do. Is
Okay.
the reason that these changes are like regional, like they would have been written by people from, like we here in Northern Virginia say Baltimore instead of Baltimore. So is there any reason why that would be besides just, oh, we forgot it? Is that a regional differences possibly?
Well, there are two approaches to answering your question. First and foremost, yes, there are dialectic and regional nuances, but I don't know that it has a lot to do with the topic at hand. I think what happened is the way that Hebrew was pronounced was locked into if I can say it was put into concrete as soon as the invention of the alphabet came around. And so all the changes had already taken place when Hebrew was only a spoken language. And then once the consonantal alphabet is invented, then it locks all those changes into place. But then over time, we see how the Arameans, for example, don't distinguish gutturals. I say Arameans. Let me say the Babylonian Aramaic speaking captors of Judea don't differentiate gutturals. But then again, the Moabites didn't differentiate gutturals either. That's why Ruth is named Ruth instead of Reut, which is friendship. They lost the ayin. The Aramean or the Aramaic speaking Babylonians did the same thing. They would swap out alepphs and ayins, making no distinction between them. It would basically be a faux pas spelling, like spelling cat with a K. So there's a lot to unpack there, but I don't know if regional dialect is the explanation here. Do you have a follow-up question? I'm sorry, I think you're still on mute. Please turn on your microphone.
Yeah, I was having trouble. I'm on my phone, so I couldn't find it. No, I don't have
fine.
a question.
Okay.
I'm just wondering because it seems interesting that it would change so dramatically and they would lose letters. And so it was curious.
As a matter of generalities, Hebrew loses certain predictable things. Hey between two vowels will often go missing. Diphthongs and triphthongs will often simplify down to either a single vowel or possibly a triphthong turning into a diphthong. Noons at the end of a syllable will assimilate into the next letter unless it's a guttural. There are a number of principles that I'd like to sit down and compile into a list, and these would be on that list. But yeah, once you've got those tools under your belt, all of a sudden understanding the irregular forms of Hebrew becomes a lot more fun. You're like, oh, I know what happened here. It was that principle that I get to see in all these other places. All right, so back to the confusing task of who's saying what. So Jacob is commanding the messengers, and he's the one saying, thank you, Cheryl, quote, thus you all, O messengers, shall speak to my Lord. To whom? Well, this apposition right there, to Esav. So Esav and my Lord are one and the same. Wait a second. So now who's speaking? This is like quotes within the quotes. This is what you all shall say. So now this is what the messengers shall be saying. Ko amar avdecha, thus says your servant. Your servant who? Jacob. So here's apposition again. Who is the one speaking? But now it's nested inside of two quotes. Im Lavan garti. Wait, so who's speaking now?
Jake. Well,
Now this is the direct quote. So now we have a quote within a quote within a quote. This is what Jacob is saying. Im Lavan garti. With Laban I have sojourned or dwelt. Va'echar. What is that? We need to come back to that. Va'echar ad ata. So here's the end of Jacob's quote. Here's the end of the messenger's quote. Here's the end of Jacob's quoting to the messengers. Okay. Any questions on who's saying what to whom?
it's clear.
It's clear as mud. What is this verb? Can somebody parse this out? It looks different. It looks
It looks like I will be late, or it looks like a Vayyishlach.
It looks like
Vayyishlach, I was late. That's what. Well, echar means to wait or to be late, right?
Yeah. So I hear Vayiktol, but a Vayiktol should have a yiktol prefix. Where's your yiktol prefix?
in the aleph.
In the aleph. So if we take the aleph, then what binyan starts with a tzere and has only two root letters? Oh, crud. Back up. Maybe it's not Vayiktol. What else could it be?
Okay.
Could be conjunctive.
All right. Well, let's assume it's conjunctive. That means we get echav. What is that?
Could it be Vekatol?
I will be detained, or
Did y'all hear Tuesday? What'd she say?
Vekatol?
She suggests vekatal. Can it be vekatal?
the vav. Well, actually, it could.
No.
No, it couldn't.
It could be compensatory
No.
lengthening. Compensatory lengthening. All right.
You're talking about this tzere, Cheryl.
That's
Cheryl, you're talking about this being compensatory lengthening.
the patach under the vav.
Oh, sorry, that's kamatz.
Compensatorily lengthen. I don't
Why?
know. I'm
Why
guessing.
Why would it lengthen? See, Vayiktol has a dagesh in the next letter. So if this is a yiktol aleph, we can't put a dagesh. So therefore it compensates by lengthening the previous vowel. The problem here is, though, if we take this as a yiktol prefix, we don't really have enough letters and can't explain well, can we? What root starts with chet resh? I can't think of one. Okay, so it's not that. If we go with vekatal, then that means the weirdest thing we have to deal with is the fact that this is a kamatz instead of patah
Mhm.
and tsere instead of
Uh, uh, Kamatz. Well,
Oh, a Harry. Is it like
the
Mar.
okay.
Harry?
All right, hang on. What's the root? Is it acher?
that's what I'd like to know.
Good.
What the root is.
So what verbal pattern, what binyan, what verbal pattern could this belong to?
EL?
Yeah.
Nif. No.
No.
Yeah.
Is this
No,
supposed to
because
be
there's no dagesh.
You know what? You know what? I think I like your original parsing. You got me 2-0. Oh, that's amazing. Okay.
Four gold star.
So
Vayyishlach.
what is the root? If the root is harad, then everything makes sense. Watch this. We have a kamat here because it is vayiktol. We have an aleph here, which is first person common singular. We know it's first person common singular because we saw it right there.
Mhm.
He's still talking, saying I.
Mhm.
So what binyan will have a tzere here? Well, if it's supposed to be a chirik with a noon over here.
The PL.
Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
Nifal. Nifal.
Ee-ah, ee-ah.
Nifal.
So what that tells us is that this
Consecutive
is a
imperfect.
nifal vayiktol, first common singular from the root.
Har. Resh.
I think
No
there's a
resh
missing
hey.
letter. There has to be a letter. There has to be a missing letter. If it's a lamed yod, the yod will go missing. All right. Now I really, really, really want to look this up. This is verse 5, right? I think it's verse 5.
I can't wait to learn verbs so I understand what it's saying.
It's
Verse 4.
is it verse 4?
here.
Let's go
Can I ask
to
you a question while you're going there?
yeah, please go ahead.
I was thinking is there some way that we can tell when it's Vayiktol, when it's a guttural? I understand it's gonna look kind of messed up, but I had kind of seen like I had been seeing it normally was like a hatif vowel.
Uh-huh.
I've got a weak verb here that says it's a har with a kamatz underneath the aleph, which says to loiter or to procrastinate.
What? Come again?
So it's aleph het resh, and it means to loiter or procrastinate.
I hear you saying that, and I know that acher does mean
And in the
to
PL, it means to stay or wait.
All right.
Okay.
I hear you saying that, but I can't reconcile it.
Okay.
Strong's
See, here's
says it's a hair.
Har.
okay, so I still can't think of a root that is het resh yod.
No, it's Aleph Het Resh, according to
Fine.
Strong's.
Fine. And,
Aleph,
and
Het,
Strong's
Resh, yeah.
has its problems, but let's
Mhm.
look at this. If it is from the root aleph het resh, then that means we have several problems. First problem, we have a kamatz instead of a shva. Second problem, this is a 3ms.
Uh-huh.
So does it mean that the servant is saying he, Jacob, remained there until now, and therefore our quote doesn't end over here, but rather it ends here like that? And if so, another question I have is if this is a my next question would be, well, what binyan is this? It could in some universe be a PL where we expect to put a dagesh here but can't, so we lengthen the preceding vowel. The problem with that is hey and chet don't usually do that. They virtually double. So there should be an Achirik here, virtually doubled. Ichal. He tarried. So I really don't, I can't stand 100% behind Strong's on this one. It does look like maybe there's something else going on here, but no, I'm afraid in the moment I don't have a perfect explanation.
Could it be
Arnold,
iron?
could it
Het
be
resh
ein, ein?
resh?
Could it be ein? Harar. It's
Um,
not ringing a bell, but theoretically, I guess it could. Het resh resh. I'd have to look it up in Strong's to get like a Strong's number, maybe. Tell you what, let me do this. Let's put het resh resh and make it partial and see if that can find something. Charer, yeah, a parched or dry place, which is what I saw earlier with the same root chor. Yeah, sorry, no solutions on this one. This one's going to be a draw. Anyway, it appears that he stayed there, or maybe was scorched there. Oh, wouldn't that be something?
Well, he
And
was
I
kind of
was
scorched there, Jared. He was
taken right
scorched there because Laban
That's
kept changing the rules.
that's why I'm getting excited. I'm like, oh, what if it was? And I was scorched there until now? I don't know. Figuratively, that's enticing, but I'm still gonna abstain until I have more information. Sorry, guys, don't know.
What verse is this? This is
I think this is verse
Genesis
5.
what?
This is Genesis 32, verse 5.
32:5.
32, 5. Okay, why is it ata instead of ata?
Puzzle.
Pausal. What is the root of ata or ata?
Et.
Sorry, what?
Time.
Time.
Well, how do you spell it?
Ayin with and then tet.
Tav.
Tav, sorry.
So I only see one, possibly two root letters here.
So maybe
Again, nobody knows for 100%. It could be that it is from the root ein nun tav, where the tav is actually part of the root, but was misunderstood as a feminine. And so ata or et means time and is feminine. Much like, solet has a third root letter tav and it's it's confused for feminine, or Shabbat has a root letter tav that's confused for feminine, or tzevet or tzomit. There's tons of examples. Or it could have come from ein nun nun, and a nenet becomes ent, which becomes ant. I don't think that's a good explanation. I think this is a better explanation.
What is the root for?
Nobody knows. It's
if it was with a noon, what would that mean?
The noon would assimilate into the tav, creating a strong dagesh. Much like emet has a noon that disappears into the tav, so that amiti has a strong dagesh. Okay. Missing noon. So my from what I know, from my opinion, professional opinion, is that it was probably ein nun tav. But I looked it up in several dictionaries and nobody can know for sure. Looking at all the other Semitic languages, it's like, well, maybe it's this one. But it's fun to speculate.
Would it change because it's in puzzle? Would they just make a change like that? That's my first question. My second question is, what is a paragogic hey?
Okay. As far as pausal go, all that happened is it went from a patach that's unstressed to a kamatz that is stressed. Why does it? I mean, this ties a little bit into the Rouse rule, where you can't have a closed syllable with a long vowel unless it's stressed. Now, as far as paragogic hey, paragogic just means attached.
Yeah.
So here we have an attached hey, but it's an unstressed. Well, ata. No, it is usually stressed, isn't it? So this is going to be your feminine kamatz hey, ata. It's not paragogic. Paragogic hey would be on a verb uh like ka. Kach means to take. Hey, take this. Kach. But in this form, ka, we have something extra on the end. That's a paragogic hey, and in this particular instance, it probably means do this towards me or for my benefit. So take this thing for my benefit. Ka. But again, paragogic just means it's attached. That's it. It's just a fancy word that means attached.
Mhm. Question, la har. So for la har, could it be called Vayyishlach, where you have one of those of pay olive verbs, and this is the olive of the root has disappeared?
The problem with that is that pay olive verbs all have an O sound in the prefix conjugation.
Oh,
Omar, va ochal, va
okay.
ovad. So I don't think so.
Okay.
All right. I see people with hands up. Thomas, would you like to read?
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
Sarah, just a moment, Thomas. Go ahead, Sarah.
You dodged beautifully the first verb.
I did, didn't I?
Yeah.
Well, what about it?
Well, I think it's probably got an aleph that's disappeared off the end.
Okay, well, you can see the translation. What's the root that means command?
Yatsa.
No, yatsa is to go out.
Right. Okay.
What's a mitzvah? Mitzvot.
Well, yeah. That's a command. So it's a hey that's missing.
I would say it's a yod that's missing and all that's left is a hey, but tomato. So mitzvah, like this, has first root letter tzadi, second root letter vav with a strong dagesh because, wait, no, it's not a strong dagesh. Take it out. And third root letter yod went missing, so we'll put it up here in heaven because the yod's gone. Mitzvah. So here, the root letters are tzadi, vav. Surprise, the yod went missing again. What does the vav with the patach mean?
It sings and so.
I'm looking for the word vayiktol.
Yeah, well, that's
okay. Good.
I didn't know whether you wanted to translate the word or whether you wanted.
Good. Okay, so it's a vayiktol. Yod tells us that he is the subject. So, and then he tzadi vav missing yod. He commanded. So where did the yod go? Well, in vayiktol forms, if there is a mater letter, if there's a vowel letter, it will usually go missing. Vayiktols like to apocopape. So instead of vayitzave, it just becomes vayitzav. Brilliant. So how do I know that this is a PL? Well, there's a shva under the iktol prefix letter and a patach under the first root letter. The only other diagnostic we should expect is a dagesh in the second root letter, but not at the end of a word. So good luck with that one. So these are still enough to identify it as a PL, vayiktol, 3ms, with an apocopated, an omitted yod, or what should have been a mater lectionis hey. All right, Thomas, your turn to read. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Vayhi li shor nachamor tzon ve'eved ve'shifcha va'ashlecha lehagid ladoni limtso chen be'enecha.
Excellent. Vayhi li shor וחמור, צאן ועבד ושפחה. ואשלך להגיד לאדוני למצוא חן בעיניך. Earlier, we were just talking about Vayyishlach and missing vowel letters, mater lectionis letters. Here it's doing the same thing. The root is hey, yod,
Hey.
missing hey. Yep.
Hey,
Should be hey yod yod. Originally hey vav yod, but it apocryphated. And it let's see, and it was to me, which they just translate here as I have. If it's Vayyishlach, then it should be and it was to me, or it has been to me. Shol v'chamol, oxen and donkey, singular. Son v'eved. I actually would have expected va'eved, but I guess it's shortened because it's attached to this. V'eved v'shivcha. And did you all know this is the same root as in the word for family? What's the word for family?
Yes. Mishpacha.
Mishpacha.
Mishpacha. So anybody know what the root shafach means? I guess it's to attach or join oneself, join together. So shifcha joined
It's
herself.
like a servant.
Right.
Yeah, the root is servant, maid.
I think that the root of originally attaching oneself, and that's why in mishpacha we have the place, mem at the front, hey at the end, the place of attaching oneself, family, mishpacha. But here it's the feminine for the one who attaches herself. She became part of the family. She's not part of some other family now. Vayyishlach. Is this a paragogic hey?
And I have sent.
Honestly, I don't like the way I just asked that question because it sounds like I just asked, is there an attached hey?
No, it's a verb.
Yeah, but you can have attached heys to verbs. And let me reword the question. Can anyone help explain why there's a hey attached to this verb?
Shalach is to send.
To somebody.
You know what? Shoot, this is 3 for 0. This is really bad. I think it is a paragogic hey because of this right here. Vav with a kamatz means, especially with an aleph.
It's a Vayyishlach.
Vayyishlach should be shortened, if anything, not lengthened. So yeah, I guess this would very well be a paragogic hey. What meaning does it bring to the verb?
Absolutely none.
What's that?
Absolutely no meaning. It brings no meaning to it.
Yeah, I don't know if I can buy that either. I think it just has a meaning that we don't have anymore, that we can't deduce anymore. I wonder if it adds some sort of component of entreaty, please, kindly, I am your servant, humbling myself. I wonder if it's something like that. Because eshlecha is the cohortative, which means let me do something or I want to do something. But the va at the front makes it a vayyishlach. Seems like he's mixing apples and oranges here. Is it a vayyishlach or is it a volative cohortative? Yes and yes. Doesn't always have to be one or the other. Maybe it's both and. I don't know. Vayyishlach, and I have sent, please, lehagid ladoni. Uh-oh, there's a dagesh, strong dagesh. What do we suspect is missing?
Noon.
Neged, focused, neged meaning opposed or facing. Lehagid, to have a conversation, to tell. Ladoni, to my adon. Limtzochen. Why didn't this drop down to a kamatz katan? If this was the word lishmor, it would have dropped down, but not here. Why?
Is it stressed?
No, it's not. The
It's
stress moves
supposed to
over
say,
here.
okay, the accent's on the chen,
Mhm.
so the syllable before it is supposed to be long.
Pardon?
It's a rule of when it I'm giving myself away. I was reading a grammar book
Okay.
this week, and when the accent it's in construct, right?
I wouldn't
So
use the word construct, but there is a makaf, so it's treated like a single,
right.
syntactically, it's treated like a single word, like a compound word. Sure.
So if the stress is on the chen,
And it is.
it's a near syllable to the stress.
Yeah.
So that one's long.
I understand where you're coming from.
Okay.
I understand now. Okay, so for example,
Or is that just for nouns?
no, it's a principle that applies to more than just nouns. I understand where you're coming from, but I don't know that it applies here. The problem is that here, the aleph has done something very pesky. It's quiesced. You now no longer have a closed syllable. It's an open syllable. If it were a closed syllable, like lish morchen, like this, then the cholam, losing its stress, goes down to a kamatz katan. Lishmo chen, with or without the shva, doesn't matter. But because the aleph is quiesced, I'm sorry, it's no longer a closed syllable. It's open, and cholam can stay in an open syllable.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to think of a good example to the principle that you were talking about, which by the way doesn't even work with third person, doesn't work with certain katal verbs. Let me explain myself. Mam la too close. Try again. Mam la chot.
Mhm.
Mam la chot. Chot is stressed.
Mhm.
Now we should expect. You know what? Let me put another word in front of it. Le mamlachot.
Mhm. Lemanachot.
Sure. Yeah. Just I'm pulling this out of my hat right now. So mamlachot is what? Kingdoms.
Mhm. Yes.
Mamlacha. Le means
Yeah.
two. So we're going to kingdoms. So we're going towards kingdoms.
Mhm.
Usually we think of kamatz.
Mhm.
If it's too far away from the stress, we'll drop to a shva.
Mm.
So what if we said
Well,
um whatever the context would be? Let's just run with it.
oh.
What if we said mam lechot bo, and now the stress is over here? Does this stay a kamatz or does it drop to a shva? It's too far. This is the
Mhm.
principle you're talking about, Cheryl. With the stress next door, the kamatz is preserved. But if it gets too far away, the pre-penultimate, then it drops down to shva. Same principle that happens in construct nouns, where kamatz will drop to a shva if it's too far away from the stress syllable. Now, I would also point out that le, I put it on there because the original form of le is la. It dropped down. Why? Because it's too far away from the stress. Okay, so I'm trying to showcase the principle that you were looking up. Is it helping, Cheryl?
Yeah, a little bit. I think, well, I'll talk to you later about it, but
Okay.
it's a chapter out of a grammar book that I got a hold of.
Is it
Um,
Gesenius or Yuan or
no, none of those guys. But
okay?
it's some professor. Oh, I wish I could find it. Oh, here it is right now. It's called Learning Biblical Hebrew, and they have a chapter that was, I mean, it's just mind-boggling. And they take you right back to the historic root, and they show you how the vowels changed to the biblical, And then they really stress that issue of what to do with the vowels in
Wow.
the biblical Hebrew. I'm
Can
going
you
to send
share?
you, I'm going to
Can you
send,
can you
what's
share with
that?
everyone in the chat the title of the book, or if you can find it
Yeah,
on Amazon?
it's a great book. I wouldn't say it's great for um beginners, but
Sure. Okay,
let's see, it's called, oh, I'll put it in the chat. I'll just put
please.
it. Okay.
All right. Any questions on this before we move away from it? Jesse, you want to read?
Okay. Vayashu Vayashuvu Hamalachim El Yaakov Lamor Banu El Achicha El Esav Vegam Holech Likratecha Ve'arba Meot Ish Imo.
Uh-oh. Someone's in trouble. Okay, before I read through it, could you reread this one right here, noting that the stress is on the last syllable?
Likrata Techa
Techa.
Techa.
Likra techa. Notice that there's a meteg right here, which will often mark secondary stress. When you let me think of a good example. Uh, what was the one I used earlier? Oh yeah, elementary. Know that there are two stress. There's a primary, which gets the most stress, but then there's a secondary. Well, with long words in Hebrew, you'll get secondary stress as well, and that marks your secondary stress. Likra techa. Likra techa. Likra techa. There we go. Sometimes it'll also show up as a munach instead of a meteg. I don't see one here though, so it's a moot point. Yeah, so Jacob feels like he's in trouble. Vayashuvu hamalachim. Notice that didn't drop down because it's next door to the stress. El Yaakov lemor banu el achicha. Here we have two cancellation marks. Go with that one because the one at the end doesn't really do anything to help you. It's always at the end. El Esav, little pause because of that. V'gam holech likratacha, little pause. Ve'arba me'ot ish imo, and 400 man with him. 400 men are with him. Okay, Vayashuvu, got our Vayiktol. Yod, he is the subject, right? No, these work together. Yod at the front, U at the end. Who's the subject?
They.
They, referring to the Malachim. They returned. The root is Shuv. Wait, where's my Vav in the middle?
It's
Disappeared.
disappeared.
Vayiktol apokapation, just like the Hey went missing in Vayahi, and what was the other one? Vayitzav. So also here, our mater letter goes missing. Vayashuvu. Hamalachim, the messengers return. El Yaakov, to Jacob, lemor, to say or saying. Banu, we did come or arrive. El achicha, to or unto your brother. El Esav, apposition. V'gam holech likratecha, and even walking, masculine singular, likratecha, you. Who's the subject?
Yaakov?
Again, I don't like the way I asked that question. I don't like the way I asked that question because technically this is not even a verb. What is it?
That's
Participle.
Participle. And what is a participle? What part of speech is a participle?
it's
Noun.
a noun.
ing.
And
Verb.
You can think of INGs in the sense that it is an adjectival verb.
oh,
All right. So it's technically an adjective. How do you know it's an adjective, Jared? Easy. It has four forms. Holech, holechet, holchim, holchot. Nouns and adjectives have the four forms. It describes something as doing an action. Look at the man who is, your verb is walking. Walking is fun. There it's a substantive. It's not a verb. Look at the walking man. There it's an adjective. So I would argue that participles in Hebrew are adjectival verbs that people often confuse for verbs themselves. But that's just my thing, I guess. Gam holech, and even walking, he walking, or masculine singular walking, likratcha, towards you. What's the root of likratcha?
Kara. Aleph.
Aleph. I thought kara means to call out or to read.
It means both.
Sure, but in what way does calling out or reading?
Yeah. Is it a hay on the end of Z?
The hay on the end. Sorry, say again.
Should be a hay on the end instead of an aleph.
Ah, I see. I would argue that it's a yod that at the beginning of a syllable turned into an aleph. And if it's at the end of a syllable, then it goes missing and all we have is a hay.
Okay.
So, Yikre, remember when Jacob was scared to send scared to send Benjamin down to Egypt, he said, unless Yikre mashahu, ason, lest something happen to him. So this is probably from the same root to happen upon. To happen upon you. He's coming to meet you. So why is it an aleph here? Well, probably because the yod changes to aleph. There are plenty of examples where yod changes to aleph. Mostly in the what do you call it? Shema Peula. The noun of the verb. I'm not sure what that would be called in English. The arba meot and 400 arba. Is this the masculine or feminine form?
It's the feminine form.
Feminine.
Feminine. And what would the masculine form be?
Arba.
Arba. Counterintuitively, the masculine form of numbers 3 through 10 have a kamatz hey at the end. Bummer. It's very confusing for everyone, even Israelis. The arba meot ish. Why is it man instead of men?
Because men and boys or sons are always after numbers are singular noun.
It's only if it's 11 or more. Above 10, you can use a singular noun. If it's 10 or less, then you have to use the plural noun, or at least that's what we see happening in the Bible. It's more descriptive rather than well, in modern Hebrew, it's prescriptive. But most people just use the plural. And then amo, what's the root of amo?
Also
With. And
yeah.
yes, and then the it's
like shadow, darkness.
The him
is the him. Mm-hmm. Very good. Yeah. All right, questions on this verse before we move on to the next one? All righty, who's my next reader? Eileen, would you like to read?
Yeah, sure.
All right, go ahead.
Vayyishlach Yaakov me'ad me'od me'od Vayitzar Yizar Yizar
Vayetzer.
Vayetzer le lo
That's right.
lo va vai vayitz
Vayachatz.
Vayahat et ha hamet
Ha'am.
hamen ha'am
Mhm.
asher ot oto
Here it's got an E sound. Ito.
ito
Mhm.
ve'et ha hadz o
Mhm. Hatzon.
Hatson
That's it.
Hatson ve'et ha ve hahakar
Habakar.
habakar ve'gam
Not quite.
liam
There's a gam in the middle, but it's hagmalim.
hagamalim
Mhm.
le shin
Lishne.
lishne 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 machenot
Machanot.
mahalot
Machanot. No, there's no lamed. It's a machanot.
mahanot
Right. So machane is the singular, machanot is the irregular masculine plural. Camps, not camps. Vayira Yaakov meod. Vayetzer lo. Vayachatz et ha'am asher ito. Ve'et hatzon. Ve'et habakar. Vehagmalim lishnei machanot. All right, so he's very afraid, right? He's Vayira meod. What's the root of Vayira?
Yod Resh Aleph.
We get to see
Yod
the
Resh Aleph.
We get to see.
Why are there two yods?
Well, there's a yod for he, 3ms, and then there's the yod for first root letter.
Yeah.
Veth is the second, aleph the third.
Yeah.
We talked about it, I think, last week. See the doubling dagesh in the yod. There are actually 3 yods here, but the other one has to do with the vayiktol prefix that comes from the root hey vav yod, and the yod disappeared as a dagesh. TB. Okay, so and then he was afraid. Jacob was meod greatly. Vayetzer. Cheryl, what is the root of what's the root of this verb? I'm sorry, your microphone's on mute. Say again.
Yeah, we talked about it. It's tsar.
Tsar.
Narrow.
Okay, tsar is only 2 root letters.
Mm-hmm.
What's the third root letter?
It's okay. It's the. Is it a vav or is it a vav between? So.
All right, so that's okay. That's one.
That's a guess.
Right, I get it. It could hypothetically be a vav or a yod. What else could it be?
A yod on the end?
Could be okay. Let's put a yod on the end. What else could it be?
Or a noon at the front?
No.
Hey.
Ooh, if a noon's on the front, I would expect to see a strong dagesh in the tzadi.
Yeah.
Hey. Oh, hey.
Olive? Wait, consonantal hey? No.
No,
Aleph won't usually go missing unless it's a pay aleph verb. It'll just quiesce, so not that
Yod.
one either. Yod where?
Pay yod. Or
Oh,
yod at the beginning.
I see. But if that were the case, then there should be a strong dagesh in the tzadi.
If there's a missing yod?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yod usually doesn't leave a dagesh, but in what are called the pei yotzari verbs, it does. Like yitzor,
right.
he will create something, actually has a dagesh, even though it's got a missing yod in it. Yitzor should have been yitzor. So yeah, it can happen occasionally, but most of your dagesh dots are going to be because of a nun. But here with the tzadi, I would suspect the other one. So could it be a yod tzadi? I don't think so. There's no dagesh in it. What else could it be? There's one more option.
Hey?
Well, no. Hey. Remember hey at the end of
Oh,
a
it's a
verb?
dog. Yes, sorry.
Sarah.
Exactly. So the hey at the end of a verb is actually this one. Yes, you got it. Who said it?
Thomas
I
said
did.
It's an
They
ein
both
ein
did.
verb. Okay, so you both win. So could be an ein ein. This is the one. Tarar. And you're never going to see the dagesh in it because it's a resh. How do we know that it's stadi resh resh? Because of other sister Semitic languages. Anyway, what form is this?
It's a vayiktol.
Vayiktol. So we can automatically slice away the vav patach dagesh and the yod, and now we have, what is that? A tzere and a segol. What binyan is it?
PL?
Call?
I think it's kal. I think it's kal because of the parallel with vayesht. Has anyone seen this verb before? Vayesht.
No.
It comes from the root.
Is it to drink?
Yeah, exactly. It comes from the root.
Oh, it's like shutter. Like shutter.
Right, exactly. And so we do have a missing yod at the end, but the point is that this should have been two shvaz. Hebrew doesn't like consonant clusters at the end of a word. So what it'll often do is put an artificial vowel here, like a segol. However, here it didn't. There, I think it did. So the fact that there's a tzere in vayesht and a tzere here tells me that it's probably kal from a tzadi resh resh where the resh went missing. Kal. Okay, so it was distressing lo unto him. Vayachatz oy vavoy, another one with a missing. What's the root of this one? We've got vayiktol. Yod says he's the subject, but what's the root?
It's chutz. I know it's chutz. I looked it up.
Between. Is that right?
It's an ancient root with a chutz. Then my book's wrong.
Your book is wrong.
Okay.
Okay, look. I don't want to be presumptuous here, okay? I don't know everything. I make mistakes. I admit my mistakes. What I would point out, though, is that if the root were chutz, then you can't completely lose the vav without any trace whatsoever. I would have expected that to be a kamatz katan, like vayachotz. If it were a missing vav, much like take the root shuv. If I put it into the vayiktol, it would be vayashov. So I don't think it could be a vav, a hollow root chutz. Plus, chutz means something like outside.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
But chatz is to divide, like to cut in half.
I hear what you're saying. So what is the root for dividing in half?
Hatzi. Tzadiyot.
Uh-huh.
Think of the noun chetzi or chetzi.
Chetzi.
The root is chet tzadi yod. So if we put that into a verb, we could say chatza, he divided something, or chetzi would be a division in half. It would be a half of something. So here I'm thinking because of the chet, we get an vowel harmonization. But the point is that it's got an unstressed short vowel right here. Much like this had an unstressed short vowel. My guess is it's artificial. The word should have been vayachts, just like vayesht. Because of the chet, we get vayachatz instead. But the point is that it would be chet tzadi yod to divide in half, and that seems to be what he did because he made division of the maidservants, and then Leah, and then Rachel, and then Jacob at the front. He divided everything up. I would argue that it's chet tzadi yod instead of chet vav tzadi. Plus, what does chutz outside have to do with it?
I don't know. They said it was a primitive root. The reason I'm asking is because my little guy, whom you met, said, Ima, is there a word for, is achatz a word in Hebrew? And he just pulled that out in the middle of the week. And so I did some looking, and I said, no, I couldn't find it anywhere in Two Liter or anywhere else. But then later I found something in here in reading this, and I said, well, maybe achatz is like a yikto, achatz, I will divide in two. And so I went looking in that app that I have, and they said chutz was a primitive root, if I'm not
Well,
mistaken.
what does that mean to you, a primitive root?
It means that it's really old and historically chutz, no?
No, a
What does
primitive
that
root.
mean?
A primitive root means it's not derived from something else. Like for example, Ravav might be related to Rabbah, Resh Bet Yod. So one of those is not primitive. Um, as to its age, I mean, I hear what you're saying. Primitive does by definition mean prime, like original. So I hear what you're saying there, but how do they know? How does your book know that it's a primitive root? Were they there? How do you prove that? I want to know.
So it's a root that just can't be changed anymore. That hasn't been changed anymore. It's the most basic that you can find of it.
No, look, Sarah, I think it has more to do with whether something is derived from something else. But you know what? Like I said, I'm wrong quite a bit. So let's put a pin in that one and figure out if we can come up with an answer. No, not at all. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying let's research it, see what they mean by that, and then come back next week and talk about it.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. I mean, I see it all the time. Oh, this is a primitive root. I'm thinking, well, I think I know what that means, but maybe I need to research it. All right. So chutz means outside of, but how can I find a verb? How can I find a verb of that root? Again, put a pen in it, Jared. Okay. Have to do more research later. Christina, would you like to read?
Oh, sure. I raised my hand though for a question on the previous verse.
My apologies. What is your question?
It's okay. I was wondering why Lishnei Mahanot wasn't Lishnei Mahanaim. If that makes sense.
No, I understand. Can you explain to everyone what you mean? What is Mahanaim and what's Machanot? What's the difference?
Mahanaim is two camps. Machanot is just plural camps.
So the answer to your question lies in the dwindling of the usage of the dual. Even in biblical times, we see that the plural dual. Remember, there's a singular, there's a dual, and there's a plural proper. Now, the singular is always one. The dual is always I say always. Dang it. Every time I say always, I can think of an exception. Is supposed to be two, and then plural is supposed to be two or more. The difference lies in, I guess, convention using certain words in the dual so much that it's locked into standard usage. And that's where we get like body parts or units of measure or time. Those are where we find the duals usually. But we also know that Jacob named the place Machanayim, which means two camps. So that begs the question, would Jacob have originally said Lishne Machanayim and that somebody else later on updated the text to Lishne Machanot? I don't know. It's speculative. But I can be certain that the usage of the dual fell out of common. Sorry, I said that wrong. The dual fell out of common usage. If I have one apple, that has no ending. If I have two apples, it has an ayim ending. If I have three apples, then it has an eem ending. No, that fell out of usage long before biblical Hebrew was enshrined in the Bible.
Okay.
It had become more a matter of convention for certain words.
Okay, I have to apologize
No, you
because
don't.
the they do call it a primitive root and to compare it to something else, and I think they get a lot of their information from Strong's by the look of it.
No one's perfect.
And the root that they give is chatzah with
Okay,
a
good.
hey.
Okay, so if it's from chatzah with a hey, then that points us back to our original chatzi or chetzi. And my question would be, why do they call it primitive if it came from something else? And then my question would still remain, where did the vav go?
Yeah.
Why even try to force a vav in there? Oh, here's another one. If it were a hollow root, here, vaya, oh, what is it? Vaya, oh, here it is. Vayyasav. This is a hollow root. So it does have a patach. But what do you notice different about it and that?
Kamatz.
Kamatz.
Mm-hmm.
We expect a kamatz with hollow roots. Now, also, this could be a he feel, and we lost the he feel yod, which is a lot more understandable than losing a root letter vav. But the point is, with kamatz, that tells me that I'm looking at a hollow root. If that's a hollow root, where's my kamatz? I don't know. I'm not convinced.
I don't understand why when I said chatzah, you took it to chutz again.
Let me reiterate. The book that you're looking at, which one does it call a primitive root? Chutz or chatzah?
Well, that's a good question.
I was under the impression that they were calling this one a primitive, but then they derive it from something else, which means it's not primitive.
They just say a primitive root at the bottom. They stick the root in.
We need to look that up.
Chatzah.
We need to do some research on what they mean by that.
Okay. I'll send you a picture.
Oh, I'm very familiar with it. I just need to figure out what they mean by it. All right, who would like to read?
I can read, sure.
Is that is that
Christina?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Vayomer im yavo esav el hamachane ha'achat vahikahu vahaya hamachane hanishal lifleta.
Lifleta, very good. Vayomer im yavo esav el hamachane ha'achat. Vehikahu v'haya hamachane hanishar lifleta. What did I just point out?
That one of the groups of his wives. Is that what it is?
Machane. I'm looking at machane, and it is modified by the word ha'achat. Achat is masculine or feminine.
Feminine.
Vehikahu, and he strikes or attacks it. Who is masculine or feminine?
Masculine.
Masculine.
Vehaya,
Masculine.
and it will be hamachane hanishar, the company or the camp that masculine singular remains lifleta, for the act of escaping. All right, this goes back to our discussion about shnei, masculine, machanot, versus, where was it? What was it? Where's the feminine where's the feminine that we saw with machanot? Where did it go?
The current verse.
Yeah, you went to the wrong verse.
I went the wrong way. Did I go up or down?
Go forward.
Forward. This one?
There.
There.
No. I'm looking back to what we read earlier, where we were having some trouble with machane being feminine earlier. And I said, the A would have been added later. Where was that? Machane.
Oh, wait, were you talking about Machanaim?
Yes. Why wasn't it Machanaim? Was it this one? Now I'm lost. Okay.
Yeah, right
It's
there.
the last
Right
one.
there.
The last word.
Lishnei
Machanot. No, it wasn't that one.
No?
No. All right. Now, okay. What slide am I on right now? I'm on slide number something.
I thought it was that one.
No, one more.
It says "ot" at the ending of the word
It
camp.
does, but I thought it was in later Hebrew, it's an irregular plural ot, even though it's masculine. So my question is, why was it earlier that it was referred to in the feminine? Oh, come on. Don't you? Okay. Verse 7 or slide 7, not here. Not here. No.
Or no, I guess until I missed it.
Shnei machanot. I thought it had to be here. Okay. Anyway, the point, I guess the point still remains. We've got feminine for machane, and then all of a sudden it's masculine here. It's masculine here. Is it feminine or masculine? Man, now I'm frustrated. What verse was it in?
Hanishar.
Say again.
Hanishar, I think, is masculine.
Oh yeah. No, that's exactly what I'm saying. So achat is feminine, hu is masculine, and nishar is masculine. So is machane masculine or feminine? Remember, was it with oh, I know what it was talking. Oh, Cheryl, it was from a different lesson. It was with it was the reading of the four lepers. That's what it was. Here, let me go look for it real quick. I think put us in Second Kings 7. It was talking about machane, so of course that didn't work. Let's do that. Ignore, there we go. Machane. Okay. Machane Israel, Vekumu. Hello, where's machane? Right there. Chol machane, it's not that one. Chol machane. This looks familiar. Okay, I see it. That's not helpful. There it is. Aha. This is why you guys were looking at me like I had three eyes, because it was a different lesson. And they rose up and they fled it. This is the story of the four lepers who were sitting outside of the camp. The city is starving, and they think to themselves, if we go in the city, we're going to starve too. We're going to die. If we sit here and do nothing, we're going to starve. We're going to die. How about we go over to the Syrian camp, the Aramean camp, and see if they'll have us? If they do, then we'll live. And if they don't, then we'll die. So it's a really bleak solilogy that they came up with, but it makes sense. If we do nothing, we die. Let's go do something. Anyway, so they rose up, and this is talking about the Syrians or the Arameans. They rose up and fled in the twilight and left their tents, their horses, their donkeys, and the camp as it was, and they fled for their life.
He, Ka'asher he,
You
like
found it.
Shimon.
You found
Yeah.
it. So machane ka'asher he.
Is it one of those? Is it one of those nouns you were talking about that can be either masculine or feminine sometimes?
Hang on, don't twist my words. See, I think that nouns should have a singular gender, but that somebody along the way confused it and put the wrong gender on it. So like ruach is supposed to be feminine, but there are tons of places where it shows up as masculine. Is it because they didn't know? Is it because it could be either, depending on what day it is? Or is it because somebody made a mistake? And they said, oh, the ruach doesn't have a feminine suffix. It must be masculine.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a lot more, even with the word Shabbat, sometimes it shows up masculine, sometimes feminine. Why? Because they confused the tav root letter with a feminine tav and called it feminine when it should be masculine. I think people made a mistake. So here, when we see hamachane ka'asher he, machane should be masculine.
Mm-hmm.
He should be feminine. I think this is our problem. When was the Segol added?
With the macerates.
Middle Ages.
Mm-hmm.
The woods.
Middle Ages. Now, let me take you back a step. What is a noun that has a mem at the front and a hey at the end?
A noun?
A noun with a mem at the front and a hey at the end. What function does that word serve? Think of
I don't know. What comes to my mind is like milchama.
yes, misada, ma'afiyah. What's a misada?
Restaurant.
A place where you sa'ad, you dine. What's a milchama?
Place where you have battle.
A place where you battle. What is a ma'afiyah?
A bakery.
A place where you afa, bake. So what is a machana, hypothetically?
Place where you camp.
I think it makes a lot more sense that this was probably supposed to be machana, machanot, and somebody dropped the ball. But it's neither here nor there, because in modern Hebrew, machane is how you say it. Machanot is an irregular plural, and that's just the way it is.
So if you want to say two camps, just not machanaim, but two camps, how would you say that?
In modern Hebrew, it would be shnei machanot.
And shnei is
Masculine.
okay, but I thought that
Masculine.
I thought that you were supposed to treat it like feminine with numbers.
3 to 10 have a kamatz hey on the end. So I would say shlosha machanot.
Okay.
And that's masculine 3 camps.
But
Or-
shnei
Shnei has a noon in it.
machanot.
The
Okay.
root of shnei is shin nun yod. In the number shtei, we lose the noon in a strong dagesh. It should have been shtei. We lost it. That's your feminine tav. So this is the feminine 2, and this is the masculine 2.
3 to 11, huh?
Only 3 to 11 have a kamatz hey on the end in the masculine. Shlosha banim, 3 sons. Arba'a shulchanot, 4 tables. Chamisha machanot, another irregular. That's where it was. I'm so sorry for claiming that this is the place where I saw that, but it was actually in a different lesson. My apologies. So anyway, here it shows up again. Is it feminine or is it masculine? It's fun to discuss. All right. Any questions on this before we read another verse? Who wants to read? Speak now or forever you hold your peace, because we're already 6 minutes over. Who wants to read?
Jesse does.
Go ahead. Of course, Jesse always loves to read. I love it when Jesse reads. Carrie, would you like? Elizabeth, would you like to read? All right, go ahead.
ויאמר יעקב אלוהי אבי אברהם ואלוהי אבי יצחק אדוני האומר אלי שוב לארצך ולמולדתך ולמולדתך והיטיבה עמך.
What's that last word?
עמך.
Mach. Very good. You had some hard words in there. That one's a gargantuan mess, isn't it?
I understand what it means. It's just hard to pronounce.
Oh, totally. You know what? What it tells me is that you have an attentive eye and you don't want to miss any detail. And what it does is it slows your reading down. I personally know what that's like. And so it's actually a good thing. How can you break past that what do you call it? That thing holding you back. Whatever. How do you break past it? Practice, practice, practice. I would recommend reading a chapter of Hebrew Bible every night. Practice, practice, practice. So here I've divided it into syllables so that if anyone has trouble, like the rest of us do, has trouble reading a long word, now we can break it up. U lemo lad tacha. U lemo lad tacha. Right? That's what it sounds like. Ve'etiva imach. All right, let me read the whole thing. Vayomer Yaakov, comma, Elohei Avi Avraham, Ve'elohei, not Ve'elo, Ve'elohei, the Aleph quiesced, Ve'elohei Avi Yitzchak, Adonai haomer Elai, Shuv le'artzecha, u'lemoladetecha, Ve'etiva imach. Now, there's something else I just thought of that causes trouble with pronouncing this word. It's the dalet. What's wrong with the dalet?
It's right next to another hard t sound right after it.
D and T are pronounced in the same place in the mouth. Ditta, 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 ditta. That's really hard to do, especially since we know this should be a silent shva.
Shva.
How do you pronounce "the" with a silent shva? Well, it's actually it's a inappropriate question. Not inappropriate. It's a flawed question. Remember that Dalit originally had two pronunciations, didn't it? This one was the, and this one was the. Now, try to pronounce it with a V sound right there.
No, still can't do it.
Really? Umolavtecha. Umolavtecha. And if you pronounce the Dalit as it should have been during the time, probably around the Aramaic influence of biblical Hebrew, it would have been umolavtecha. And that's easier to pronounce than umoladtecha. Otherwise, it feels like two shvas that are audible. Now you're starting to capture why one of the principles about Hebrew vowels is that you can't have two audible shvas in a row. It's hard to pronounce. Duh, 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 duh. Exactly. All right. So what is a noun when there's a mem at the front and a feminine suffix? Misada,
I mean,
milchama.
it's a noun that has a verb piece to it.
Hang on. Aren't most roots in general, don't most roots convey some sort of an action, a verbal action? What's the root of this one?
Yalad.
Yalad, originally walad or valad, but still, I'm going to push the issue. We just talked about a noun with a mem at the front and kamatz hey, which was originally kamatz tav at the end. So what is this noun going to be? It's going to be a place of
Having children?
It's the place where you were a kid.
Oh.
It's going to be your homeland or heritage land or however you want to call it. It's the place where you were a kid. Ulemoladtecha. Ve'etiva. What's the root of this? Ve'etiva.
Tov?
I'm glad you said that.
Okay.
Where's the O?
I mean, it's not there.
Okay. Why is there a yod here? All right, let's back up. Let's back up. Okay. What's the aleph and what's the hey?
It's I will.
I am the subject. Hey at the end.
It?
We were talking about paragogic haze earlier and how that's different than volitive haze. Here it is cohortative. Let me, or I want to, I desire to. That's what this appears to be cohortative. I desire to, I want to, let me cause, he feel, yod, tet, bet. What's the root?
Yatav.
So how do we go from yatav to tov? Are they related?
I mean, I would think so.
I have a theory about it. I can't prove it though. Do you know this verb right here?
Yechalti?
Mihalti.
I have.
Yecholti.
I was able.
Exactly. I was able. What about katon? I was small.
I was small.
What about what is it? Yagor. I was anguished or something like
I
that.
was anguished.
There was another one, was it yashok or yash? There's one more, whatever it is. What about bosh? Bosh, to be ashamed.
Yeah.
So what all of these have in common is that they are state of being verbs that have an O vowel in them. My question is whether this should have been yitov as a member of this group. And much like other verbs where we lose the yod on the front, we lost the yod on the front, and now we just think of it as tov. But again, I can't prove it, but that would explain why in the he feel, a yod is magically there. I think it was the original root, yod tet bet. And it was probably a state of being verb. After all, to be good is certainly a state of being verb. So maybe it's a theory. Imach, is this a second feminine singular suffix?
Seems like it to me.
Seems like it. But that wouldn't make sense, would it?
No, that's why I messed up when I pronounced it.
I mean, unless the Lord is female. Help me understand what's going on here. Why is it imach? Anyone? How about ba?
No.
How about bach instead of bacha? What's the difference between these
It's
two?
puzzle again.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's all it is it's pausal. This should have been imcha, but pausal moves the stress back one, which brings back your original vowel ah. And now this kamatz is unstressed, so it drops to shva. Ah, are you kidding me? Imach. It's pausal. It's still
Meaning it's
two.
at the end of the verse.
Yeah. So pausal is not just the end of a verse, it's at the end of a phrase, and it typically shows up under certain cantillation marks. Definitely the last word of the verse, but there are others, like the halfway point of the verse with this little symbol, or a quarter of the way through the verse with this symbol. Every once in a while, you'll even get it on a reviyah, like this one. So those are the symbols to look. Occasionally, you'll even get it on that one. But the point is, this is the most important. That's the second most important. And this is the third most important. And if you want to learn more after that, great. These are typically where your pausal forms will show up. They always occur at the end of a phrase or a clause. I can't always call it a sentence, because a sentence could have an and so it's still the same sentence, but it's a new clause. It's a new phrase. So that's what pausal is. All right. Any comments or questions on what we've covered today? We covered a lot of territory.
Well, I was slightly curious about why you put the accent over Vayomer instead of Vayomer.
Oh, great question. Where does this tell me to put the accent?
No clue.
All right, let's start with an easier one. Where does this one tell me to put the accent?
At the end.
Okay, so it's over top the hey. A cantillation mark usually appears above the consonant that starts the stressed syllable. Oops, consonant. There we go. So for example, this one is on the hey, that starts the syllable hum. This one's on the chirik, that's the stress syllable v. Where's this one? It's clear at the end of the word. It's not on the mem. How about this one? It's clear on the bet. It's not over the kuf. So what that tells me is that there are certain cantillation marks, including this one and this one, and this one, and this one. Well, no, sorry, not that one. I take it back. Just those that always show up at the end of a word, no matter where the stress is. So how do I know how to pronounce this word? I can look it up in 100 other places in the Bible. And when it has a different cantillation mark on it, it puts the stress right here. Because the yod starts the stress syllable of yomer. Did we have vayomer earlier?
I'm pretty
Right
sure
here.
I get it.
There, in the previous verse. There it is. Vayomer. So this cantillation mark I can rely on. Actually, all of these here I can rely on. Yay!
Does yomer, does it break, or does it not keep the rouse?
I hear your question. In this particular word, because the aleph has quiesced, every syllable follows rouse. This is closed short, this is open long, and this is closed short. All of them follow. So we have to rely on something else. Remember, this segol appears to be artificial. It should have been vayo with two shvas at the end. Just like vayesht or vayevk. Vayev. Hang on. Vayevk. This is to cry. Vayevk. It actually has a strong dagesh at the end too. But anyway, the point is, it should have been two shvas, like here and here. And because that's hard to pronounce, an artificial vowel is inserted. So it's not part of the original pattern of the word. So it's not going to be stressed. Much like melech was originally malk,
Mhm.
And that's where the stress was. And then an artificial vowel is inserted here in order to make it easier to pronounce. It's not going to be stressed though. Malech becomes melech. And so artificial vowel is what solves the mystery for me.
And it usually the indication of that is a segol.
Segol, yes. And if there is a guttural involved, you can expect a patach, much like rachav or betach. So here it should have been a segol, but because of the chet, becomes ah. Here it should have been segol segol, but because of the chet, it becomes ah. Or baal. There's another one. It should have been baal, which is very hard to say. And so it becomes baal, and that's easier to say because ayin occurs in the same place that patach does.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I'm exhausted.
Me too.
I'm full. I'm not hungry for Hebrew anymore. Maybe tomorrow. You guys are awesome. Please continue to come, tell your friends about it. And if anybody wants to donate towards
Will do.
for Hebrew, here's how you can do it. Thank you all so very much. You know what, Les, what are we going to read next week? Anybody look it up? If today was Vayyishlach, then what are we going to read next week? Vayyeshev.
Vayyishev, I believe.
Vayyeshev. Vayyeshev. So that's next week's reading. Don't say I didn't warn you. All right, you guys are awesome. See you guys next week. Shalom.
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 Yitro.
להתראות.